Hey everyone, it's Christian B. Burnaby, Vancouver-based real estate agent. Welcome to Rapid Fire Real Estate, where today I take you through 3 topics. We're going to spend several minutes on each, and you can take that intel with you out into the marketplace. And if you need more help, want more guidance, my contact is below in the show notes. Okay, the first topic I want to jump into, it's very brief. It's just a news commercial I hear running over and over again on CKNW about getting accurate home value appraisals from the homeowner. And I'm like, time out. You wouldn't ask a homeowner for the value of their home. Certainly not if you're a buyer. If you're a buyer, you and your real estate agent, let's say you and me, we're going to do a comparative market analysis and look at recent sales up and down the street, on the same floor of the building and so on. And that's how we're going to determine value. We're not going to get it by asking the owner. Second is, if you are the owner of the home and you are taking money out of the home, the bank's not going to ask you for the value. They're going to order an independent appraisal of your home, and that's how they're going to determine what the value of your home is and how much of that they'll give to you to take out in what's called a home equity line of credit, which you can then use towards maybe education, buying a second property, or something else. But you wouldn't, as this commercial just gets it wrong, and unless I'm missing something, and maybe I am, but you wouldn't ask the homeowner for the value of their home for your needs. Okay, moving along. So the big topic for today is thinned. Big developer, well, let's call them a medium to large size developer. They've built, I think, several towers now, so they're not small-time guys either. And they've run into some serious debt issues. They owe a little over $300 million. They're accruing interest on that debt by $100,000 a day. This is not one of those, you come home to your wife and you say, honey, any luck getting that part-time job? It's tough. Now, to put a human face on this story, the developer here started as a small-time guy. Apparently, he just started tiling bathrooms for his brother-in-law and made some money doing that and put that money towards a bigger project and kept scaling himself up. So, and this, of course, took several decades. And this person, I guess this company, has made a lot of contributions, charitable donations to BC hospitals. So there's a lot of good coming from this developer. And people obviously have homes, and there's many construction workers who have worked to build these projects as well. Now, that said, they've got a serious problem. They owe a lot of money. And like I said, it's over $300 million. And so one of their projects in Surrey has gone into receivership, so which means that the lender is, in essence, taking over and is in control and will then decide what to do with the project. If you are if you're one of the 90% that bought into this, because it's 90% sold, you then have... there's likely 3 outcomes. The first outcome could be that the lender just cancels and liquidates. So they take a loss and basically try to recoup as much as possible. I don't think that would happen because it wouldn't need to happen, and they don't want to guarantee themselves a loss. Second is the lender resumes construction of the project. I don't see them wanting to get into the construction business, so that's probably a no. Third is the project is sold to another developer. This I've seen. And Concord Pacific, for example, has bought one of the buildings around King George SkyTrain station, and again, where the developer ran into financial difficulties, and they took over and built the project. Of course, they're doing this to make a profit too. And so if there's a way for a developer to make a profit on those 10% of remaining units, well, then maybe they take over and build it. Worst case scenario, obviously, here is it doesn't get built and everybody gets their money back. But that's not really good for you, because now you're having to go back into the market, and that $600,000 condo you bought is now worth $700,000. And so you're having to come up with an extra $100,000 or more. At the same time, you've lost that appreciation. So it's actually like taking a $200,000 hit. Now, I read several articles about this developer, and so I wanted to I've got about half a dozen bullet points I want to go through with you here, and you can use this to sort of read between the lines or kind of pull on the thread so you can understand the implication of what you're reading and what it means to you as a buyer or an owner. So the first thing here is one of the articles talked about subcontractors and strata corporations suing Thind. Well, that's a red flag for me, mainly because it says they don't have enough money. And if they don't have enough money to pay their subcontractors, what's the quality of the finishing like? What's the finished product look like when you step inside and into the bathroom, the finished tiling? How about the cabinetry in the kitchen? Right? Presumably they're hiring cheap contractors because they're trying to save a lot of money. And cheap contractors don't exactly employ the best tradespeople. Another implication here for you would be that, and this was in another article, one of the stratas is suing them for negligence in design and construction of the plumbing system in their building, which has led to a sewage backup, damages, and further expenses. Well, if this is happening, right? I mean, we can see poor finishings with our naked eye, but we can't see what's behind the walls, right? And so what's the finished quality like? And if buildings need to be replumbed, and I'm not saying that the whole building needs to be replumbed, but if it did, I mean, that can cost an owner $25,000, $30,000 per unit. So this is something you'd really have to look into if you're buying one of their projects. Now, a few other points. One realtor here is suing Thind for payment of $800,000. So apparently this agent sold 44 pre-sale units in one of their projects. Now, the article doesn't tell us whether or not this agent was retained as a listing agent for the developer, in which case that makes sense, or if this was a agent acting as a buyer's agent. So when you're buying a pre-sale, you definitely want to find out, probe a little bit more. And, is this agent, do they have a special relationship with the developer? And which means the developer's allocated, let's say, 45 units to this agent. And of course, they're going to try to steer you into that specific project, maybe even into specific units. Well, that might not be to your best interests, right? You might want to go and look at something completely different. And this is easy for myself as an independent agent. I can tell you what's going on here. And of course, I'm acting in your best interests as your agent when we're selling or buying your property. But it's not always the case. There's a lot of websites online that will promote a specific project, and they're doing that because they have a special arrangement with the developer. So you have to know this and ask the right questions. And again, I'm not saying that that's the case here. I don't know. It wasn't specifically stated in the article, but it would be definitely something you'd need to know as a buyer. I think I've talked a little about quality issues. One of the articles talked about a cabinetry maker and installer being owed $600,000 by Thind. And of course, Thind responded, I guess, in a court filing saying that they didn't pay them because they didn't do quality work, and so they didn't deserve the outstanding fee. Well, when you read an article, you read that line, you have to immediately wonder what's the finished quality like in this building, right? Because there's a dispute with the installation people, and if it's happening with one installer, it's probably happening with all of them. We don't know. A few other things to take away. With all of these headlines in the news, what do you think this does for the value of the units, right? So if you're an owner and you're living in one of these right now, how do you communicate value if you're trying to sell your unit, right? You might just be moving for a job, or you're upsizing because you're starting a family, and now all this bad press is hitting the fan. It's definitely not an easy It's not an easy sell. You're really going to have an experienced agent who's answering the phone on the other end. It has to be able to guide the buyer and the buyer's agents through this kind of purchase. And I think you just have to be honest about everything. I think that's the best policy in something like that. If there's issues with your unit, you just disclose all that stuff up front on the property disclosure statement. And it's always a lot easier for a buyer to buy something that they know has a few issues, work that into the price so that they are at least somewhat happy after the fact. Okay. And I think we're just going to circle back to that last point there. Again, that Surrey project has gone into receivership according to what I've read online. 90% pre-sold. Hopefully that gets built. And again, if it doesn't, I mean, the owners of those pre-sale units that aren't built will get their money back. It's just you're buying in at a higher price. You've lost the appreciation, and you're dealing with much higher interest rates now than before. Now, what does all this say about pre-sales? So that brings us to our last topic here. Pre-sales, if we look into our crystal ball here and look out for the next 18 to 24 months, I would say you're not going to make a profit on these. It used to be that in the 2010s, there were quite a few larger pre-sale agents that would, move their clients into one project that would finish, complete, sell, and then move their clients into the next project. I don't know that that's the way you make money anymore, because there's so many regulations and taxes that have been mandated here by the provincial and federal government that I don't see any profit. So, for example, you had the foreign buyer tax from 15 to 20%, and a lot of the buyers for these ritzy pre-sales were foreign buyers. Some estimates are that for 70 to 80% of these tower projects were being sold to foreign buyers. We have the foreign buyer ban from the federal government on Ottawa. We've got now the AntiFlipping Tax from the BC government, which means if you sell it within 2 years of closing, you're hit by a 20% tax. It's another dong on the head there. So there's very little profits to be made. Plus, if you do take possession and you rent it out, now you're dealing with stricter tenancy rules. You can't raise the rent as much, although your strata fees are going up, your insurance is going up, your property taxes are going up, and now you've got to give three plus months notice to the tenant. It's just not a good situation to be banking on a profit in a short period of time with these things, right? And any profit you do make in 24 months, 20% of that will be eaten away by the anti-flipping tax. I mean, I think that about covers it. So I don't know where those pre-sale buyers go now. Do they go out of province? Do they go to Alberta, where it's a little bit more homeowner friendly, business friendly, investor friendly? Maybe they go down south. A lot of the Sunbelt states like Arizona, Nevada, Texas have more friendly investor, just more friendly to investors, where there's less stricter rules on tenancies and so on. And you probably make a little bit more cash flow if you're looking in some of these Sunbelt locations as well. Although, of course, now you're going outside the country and you're dealing with different laws and finding, realtors and property managers in other parts of the country and continent that you've never met before. It can be difficult, it can be challenging. So, but not impossible. Okay, so that was just a few thoughts here on Thin, this developer going bankrupt, and what I think about pre-sales. And by the way, a quick Merry Christmas from Ottawa. Ottawa's going to be sending you a $250 check. A thank you to Justin and the federal Liberals. Although I'm wondering, do you think we could just ask them, you know what? Why don't you keep the money? And in fact, how about we send you $250 and just call the election? Let's get this thing over with. They're certainly hanging on by a thread to power in Ottawa these days, aren't they? And coming up with some back-of-the-napkin plans to win your vote. Folks, those are the topics I have for you today. If you enjoy the content, the stories, leave us and share your opinion below. Give us a like or subscribe. We love having you, and we'll see you next time.